putting what we've preached into practice, right? We've sort of been saying, well, hey, these scales and arpeggios are so littering our repertoire. They're everywhere in our pieces, and we've got two lovely pieces to explore scales and arpeggios in today, with Janet playing the prelude of the Bach D minor solo suite, and then a small excerpt of scales as found in Beethoven's third cello sonata from Owen. It's a very short clip that Owen shared, but I'm hoping that he might be willing to do a little bit live for us too. So we'll we'll see. We'll see if we can twist his arm. Um, so maybe I can just give you a little bit of background information about the Beethoven before we listen to Owen first. So Beethoven wrote 5 cello sonatas, and maybe some of you have heard, maybe you're familiar with this idea that he has 3 periods, right? He's got the early, middle, and the late period. Okay, I think Timothy's nodding there, yes. So basically, the cello sonatas fall in the following categories. Numbers 1 and 2 are, are in the first period. And that was really the time when um, the cello was becoming increasingly a solo instrument. So, but it wasn't fully fledged yet. So, so what we find in one and two, sonatas one and two, Beethoven sonatas one and two, is that it's more about the piano actually, and the cello is really important, but it doesn't really hold the same importance as the piano. It's more piano heavy. And then from the third sonata on, the third is in the middle period, we suddenly have cello holding full voice, equal partnership to the piano in terms of thematic musical importance. The middle period is the period of Beethoven's life that is probably the most prolific in terms of pieces that are beloved by people. So, for example, the third cello sonata, but also pieces like his fifth symphony are in that period. Moonlight Sonata, his Passionata Sonata on the piano. Maybe you've heard some of those Waldenstein sonatas. And then in the late period, we've got sonatas 4 and 5 for cello, which are both incredible works. And of course, as far as Beethoven goes, also you've got these incredible late string quartets. You've got symphonies like his No.9, right, with the Ode to Joy and the choir. So all 3 periods very prolific, but this one again, the third one that we're going to hear a little bit of today, falls into the middle period, that warm, romantic, very much beloved by audiences period. So hopefully you have the score that I shared with you there, and the bit that Owen is going to play for us today is, if you have a look down that score, you might notice that part way down it suddenly becomes a bit more scale looking heavy, and actually this is sort of right at the end of the 4th system. You have a kind of noodle figure, as I call it, and then you get this scale. It goes on and on and on, and it goes up. And then another scale. So that little tiny clip that I just sang is the bit that Owen is going to play. But I thought maybe to give us a little bit more context, it might be nice just to hear actually a cellist playing this with piano, just through that spot with the scales that Owen's going to play. So let's have a listen to this recording. This is actually with cellist Brannon Cho, who he teaches in one of the big New York colleges now. I don't know if you might know Janet, it might be Manus, I'm not sure, okay. But he's incredible. He used to be based in Chicago. So let's share that. So here he is. This is during COVID, so he's wearing a mask. Okay, here we go. a cadential flourish in the piano, and then the piano plays what the cello first played. This is the opening theme. So they're basically switching parts. And on. And what, of course, is incredible to think about is that actually Beethoven was pretty much deaf by the time he was writing this sonata. So just so full of emotion and drama. So scales, there they are. And actually the one that we have at the beginning of the fifth system, second bar, with that E where which Owen is going to play, is a key, is in what key? What key are we in there? So the whole piece is in A major, but what key would we be in for the scale that starts on an E and appears in the second bar of the fifth system? Owen.
I was like, yeah, I don't know. I could be saying something wrong, but
Wrong is okay. Have a go.
is it A major?
So the whole movement is in an A major, but do you see that there's an added accidental here?
Um, oh, yeah, I see. Um, would it be like
What's
E
the added
major?
act? What's that?
Is it E major?
It's E major. You got it. Yeah, E major. Yeah, good. Yeah, so because we've got the addition of the D sharp, right? So the order of sharps is fat cats go down alleys eating bananas, right? F, C, G, D, A, E, B. One more time, if interested. Fat cats go down alleys eating bananas, eating birds, perhaps more appropriate, depending on how child friendly you want to be. Um, yes, so D sharp, fat cats go down, would be the fourth sharp, and that means that it takes us to E major. A really great cheat sheet, by the way, if you want to figure out what key you're in, is figure out how many sharps there are, and then the last sharp, which here would be D sharp, is going to be, you're going to basically go up half a step to the key, or the major key. So if D sharp is the last sharp, that's the leading tone, and just above D sharp is E. And sure enough, this is E major. It could be the relative minor, which would have been C sharp minor, but this is E major. Anyway, now that we've got that fascinating theory out of the way, let's have a listen to Owen's recording of this spot, and we will obviously be thinking about scales, how we might practice them, what he may have been thinking about when he recorded this, and what we might be able to say to him to get it better still. So here we go. So again, it was Owen shared a short clip with us, but I'm hoping that I may be able to get him to play a little bit more to us in a moment. Let me play that to you one more time. I know one time through is kind of not much to be able to give a response. So let's do it one more time. Share. There we go. And okay. All right, and you're on the hotspot again. There we go. Great. Okay, so first of all, let's hear from the man himself. So, Owen, can you tell us what you are working on in this passage and what you may have been working on or hoping would come across when you recorded it?
Um, I think, I guess like a smooth transition, like when there's string crossings.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I think
Great.
for like when I did the from the C to a G string,
Uh-huh.
um, I can like it's kind of hard like to explain, but when I was going from like the G to D, it kind of is like a weird like harmonic sound when there's like the shift when you like
Mm.
shift, and I didn't like hear that when it was like from the C to G. Um,
Okay.
and then I guess on the A
Mm-hmm.
string, the first note there was like a little glissando, and just when I went um, measure the second to last note of measure 40
Uh-huh.
and then when I go down to the E, I guess trying to mask that slide.
Okay, good. Well, those are some detailed comments, which is great and a tribute to the way you're listening and thinking about it. So that's great. Um, when we play these scales, one of the things that we have been talking about in the practice companion is this idea of set cross, right? This idea of getting the left hand down before the bow. But sometimes it's really hard to do that, especially when you're going across the string and you're actually moving like further than you have to shift as well, right? So you have to shift. And so, for example, at the beginning of your E major scale there, you've got E, F sharp, and then you'd have like a pretty enormous hand if you were able to stretch all the way back to that G sharp. Right, so you have to shift it, but this actually kind of touches on something that Linda had asked about, which is, well, should I extend it or should I shift it? And I'd said in our foundational training, well, actually there are quite a lot of places where we have to do a hybrid of both. We have to shift and extend at the same time, and this is definitely a case where we need to do that. And I know that we talked, Owen, a little bit about this in your private lesson as well. What's happening at the moment is that you're not quite doing enough of the extension, and actually you've got big hands as well, lucky you. So you can, you should be able to do that actually, and benefit from it being a lot smoother just by doing a little bit more of the extension. What I would think of is kind of extending the first finger comfortably back, right? You don't want to start really overstretching because that's never any good, right? But comfortably back, and then shift the rest of the way. And then, of course, also what you have to do here, because it's in the same bow, is be very, very judicial about how you lighten the bow as you do the string changes. And it's great that when you said, what am I working on here? And basically, I think you were saying what you perhaps wanted to improve was string changes. And I 100% agree, but it has to do with all of these things, right? It has to do with doing a bit more extension, doing this hybrid extension shift, a little bit more extension rather than just having the closed hand and shifting, which means you have to shift further, which means there's more of a hole in the line. And it also is a question of lightening the bow a little bit as you go across. So because there will be a tiny, tiny, tiny slide, and we want to get rid of that slide while making it sound smooth and seamless. And the other thing, just because you are juggling, very advanced player, is that you are doing continuous vibrato, right? So you're also trying to do this very lovely continuous vibrato, which is really, really hard from fourth finger to first finger, which is what you have here, right? You're getting your fourth finger, which is the weakest finger, to vibrate, and then having to go on to a first finger. So that's really, really hard to do. And sometimes it wasn't as smooth there in terms of continuous vibrato as it had been when you were on the same string. So your continuous vibrato on the same string is great. But here, that's where it slightly fell apart. So let's kind of unparcel that. You've got the continuous vibrato from fourth to first that you need to think about. And you've got this hybrid extension with a shift to do. So let's start by taking the vibrato out and just think about the extension and the shift. And let's do this slowly. So can you play the E, F sharp, stretch your first finger back as much as it can comfortably go. So it is stretching, but it's not like, it's not really uncomfortable. And then just kind of pay attention to how much you have to shift to actually get it onto the G sharp with the first finger. Let's try that really slowly, same bow. Okay, and it's a little hard for me to see. Let me put you on speaker view. Are you? Do you feel like your first finger is stretching back as much as it can when you play the F sharp before you shift? So what I see is that your first finger is a little bit curved like this. Can you see my finger? Okay, are you on speaker view? Yeah. So it looks a little curved. Can you make it more straight when you shift back? So straight first finger, and then just kind of experiment with, well, how far do I have to actually shift if I keep my first finger straight for the backwards extension? Like the first finger is pointing, right? It's not pointing somewhere over there. It's pointing at your nose. Right.
Okay.
Can you take a little bit more time to just make sort of freeze in that position with an outstretched first finger and then shift? Yes, and then go. Good, and careful when you shift that you don't curl up again, but you keep it straight. Good. Okay, so that's one thing that's definitely worth spending a little bit of time on. You have the same at the end of the G string notes. You've got 4 on the E and then a 1 on the E. I bring my thumb off for that because it helps generally when I'm doing an extension to release the thumb. So actually, if you look at, like, in terms of millimeters how much I'm shifting, it's really hardly anything because I've got my first finger straight, not like this, but straight. Could you try that one, Owen? Maybe just from the E to the F sharp, just like I did. So you play the E4 with straight first. But your first finger is not straight. Freeze with your first finger like this, like pointing towards your nose. And then shift as little as you need to. Maybe you don't even need to shift because your hand is bigger. Good. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So these kind of experiments with being like, how big is my hand? What feels comfortable for my hand? How am I going to make this happen is really worth doing. The backward extension that we're working on with the straight first finger is also a really common pitfall for people. So maximize your stretch by straightening it. Once you're there, then we can change position again. But people often try to do this backward extension by curling, by curling the finger rather than straightening it. So watch out for that. Okay, the other thing we talked about was 4-1, right? That 4-1 continuous vibrato is really, really hard. So let's try that again, the F sharp to the G sharp, this one. And can you just play the 4? It's really, really hard to do. Let's actually do it first. No, actually we'll do it like as if we were actually playing the passage. So what I would suggest doing. So what you might notice, Owen, is that the moment that we try to do continuous vibrato, our hand has to be relaxed. In order for it to be relaxed, we can't really be in an extension position. So it means that it kind of undermines the extension that we were just doing. The extension that we were doing would work great like that if we didn't have to do any vibrato. If we were playing the whole thing just great. But if we do vibrato, we need to keep the hand free. So it makes it much, much harder. And it means that we basically have to rely on the bow more to avoid there being a hole and to make it smoother. What I would do specifically for the vibrato, and this is true for any combination of fingers from one finger to the other, is practice for going back and forth. So you're going to go, you could do it on the same string, and just watch that this motion is continuous. To keep this as continuous as possible. It's actually helpful, I think, to try it on the same string first, because then you get the feeling of the motion just not stopping. Could you try that on the C string, doing the F sharp to G sharp? Good. Keep going. Yeah, do a few more. It's getting better. That's good. That was a good one. That was not so good. Coming back down was not as good as going up. Good. Yeah, so Owen, what you did that last time was you brought your elbow back a tiny bit, and that helped the motion actually. You went and then on the way down you pulled the elbow back in a little bit. Just a fraction, and it was smoother. Could you try that one more time? That was great. And a few of them in a row. 4, 1, 1, 4. Good. Nice. Excellent, excellent, good job. And now let's try it across the string. Just that little tiny bit, the 4-1, but just across the string. So again, you don't need to worry quite so much about the extension because we can't really do a proper extension with continuous vibrato because the continuous vibrato only works if your hand is completely relaxed, and this is injecting too much tension. So don't worry too much about doing this. If you were practicing generally and you want to practice no vibrato, definitely a good idea to do the extension.
Okay.
It's really, really good to do that. But for continuous vibrato, just worry about this motion, keeping this motion going.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you do the 4-1-1 for thinking about just keeping this going between the notes? 4-1-1-4. You could do it like this, instead you try it without actually playing. Uh-huh. That's it. Yeah, and then let's try with the bow. Yeah, so what you're doing now also is minimizing the motion of the elbow from here to here. You're not sort of going 4-1. You're sort of somewhere in between, going 4-1. You're making it a smaller motion in the elbow, which makes it easier to then do this continuously. Maybe you could try and keep the elbow in the same spot. Let's see if it's possible to keep it in exactly the same spot for the 4 and the 1. Yeah, and keep kind of homing in on that feeling of natural gravity with both arms, both arms. Heavy and easy. Good. Yes, good, good, good. Yeah, it's a very, very tricky corner. Linda, you had a question or
Yeah, I have a question to you or to Owen. Is it player's choice whether or not to use continuous vibrato in this section?
what do you
Um,
think? What do you think, Owen?
I mean, why continuous vibrato in this section? What's the uh,
Hmm.
purpose, the effect of that in this particular section? I don't remember hearing it in the example earlier. Maybe it was there, but I'm curious why.
Yeah, I think it's always a choice. It's always a choice. I think the certainly practicing continuous vibrato on its own, regardless of this particular passage in general, is a good thing to do. Also with scales, here I think there's a good argument for doing it because it just makes it that much more singing. And this period of Beethoven's output is very about singing. Is about it's warm. It's very cantabile. It's got that kind of baritone, or bass kind of beauty about it. And actually, it goes all the way up into the sort of mezzo soprano area. But yeah, I think singing, the tone.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody have any other thoughts about this passage, or questions about continuous vibrato, or comments for Owen? We kind of got really detailed about that one shift. There's so much to unpack in every corner, of course. But any thoughts?
I would like to give Owen a compliment, but I can see from when I heard him last time that now he's playing from his soul, and that's not easy to do at his age, and so that's a huge compliment for me.
Oh.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's and I know Owen, you were playing this slower for the purpose of this recording. I know normally you play it faster, but I think we're going to get treated to Owen playing actually the whole movement for us in June, right?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, listen to that enthusiasm. Listen to it. Oh, hold him back. Okay, great. So let's go on to our bar. And this is the second Bach suite. And actually, talking of whole performances, Janet did play the whole thing for us. So that's really special. So if you would like to, sorry, I'm making bread in the background, so that's what that's doing, but it'll stop in a moment. If you would like to turn to your Bach prelude score, and before we listen to Janet's beautiful playing, let's have a quick look at this score, because I just want you to take a moment to observe the scales and arpeggios. Like, it is literally all scales and arpeggios, right? We start with an arpeggio, a D minor arpeggio, and then there's a scale, and then there's a scale and a kind of mini arpeggio, and then there's a scale, and you can just, like, the whole thing is just scales and arpeggios, and when we unpack that a bit, we can think, okay, well, that means there's a lot of stepwise motion, right? Because scales are steps, so a lot of stepwise motion, and there's also a lot of thirds, because in arpeggios you've got a lot of thirds, right? If you think about C major, like C to E is a third, E to G is a third, G to C is a perfect fourth. But this is, and there's perfect fourths in this too. For example, at the end of in the middle of the third bar, we've got a fourth. Just very quickly playing the opening. You've got a third at the beginning, a third, an arpeggio, back to the F with the arpeggio, scale, turns around, a third, stepwise, another scale coming down, a third, or actually a diminished chord, all basically thirds, and then a fourth, it's actually a tritone, step, and on and on and on and on. So the fabric of this movement is absolutely scales and arpeggios. Janet, thank you so much for playing it for us, and it's perfect material. So let's have a listen to this. And Janet, before we listen, is there anything that you wanted to share with us?
I've been working a lot with Sophie on the chords and understanding the harmony and everything, and this is still a work in progress, but I found it was really helpful to do that. I've been trying to memorize it. It's not there yet, and this recording was not memorized. But I was also I've been thinking a lot about that class that we had with Xenia Yankovic. Yeah. And that's been a really helpful process. Those two things, along with memorizing it, has made me feel like I'm close to feeling comfortable, where I feel like maybe I know the piece, with trying to think of what is the piece really telling me. As I memorize it, I play it with my eyes closed, and then images and visions are kind of happening, along with something more like nuts and bolts, which is what Sophie's been talking about with me a lot, is the score analysis. So that's been the process anyway.
Yeah, and just to reaffirm that, it's been really amazing to, like, Janet sent me recordings of her own analyses of these pieces, and not just in terms of what's happening in terms of harmony, but in terms of, as she's described, like imagery and feelings, and it's beautiful beautiful imagery. It's like so inspiring what she comes up with. So I think that whole process, whether it's to do with more music theory and the keys that we're in, which she's also doing, and or if it's more of a kind of personal take on or interpretation of those things. This key makes me feel this way. The way that the phrase moves here, or this big leap is it makes me think of this. The whole process just makes it feel, I think, more one's own, right? So you kind of feel like it's, it's, as Janet said, it's like it becomes more hers, which gives us so much confidence, and not just confidence, just gives us like, it's so much more rewarding because then, so it's a lengthy process, but it's really, really worth doing. And yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned that, Janet. Okay, so here we go. Here is Janet's and prelude.
Well
Unmute,
done.
unmute. Applause. Woohoo.
Beautiful. Made me talk cry. Beautiful.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah, it's
Olivia.
kind of it's one of those movements. It's like, oh, there's nothing to say really after that. It's such gorgeous music and so well played.
You're right, Sophie. She's ready to perform. You
She
know.
is. She is, yeah. And actually, you have something, right, a little further along in August, was it?
Yes, August I'm playing. Probably going to play that movement and maybe the Courant mixed in with duets with another cellist in
That's
August.
awesome. So proud of you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah, it's there's so much poetry in your playing, and I think it's great. Any comments from anybody besides the fact that she sounds gorgeous? Is there any thoughts about anything that you might have noticed? Or so I think
I noticed
yes.
that you just seem very relaxed. It's incredible how smooth your bow is.
Thanks, Steve. I've been working on that very consciously, getting rid of tension in my playing. It's about 4 years of constant trying to get the tension out, and it's starting to become. I almost hate to say it, I don't want to curse it, but it's I think becoming more how I play, not so consciously having to remember, drop your shoulder or stop curling your toes in your shoes, you know, had a lot of tension things. Thanks.
I just would love to say your double stops, or rather, I'm sorry, the chords at the end were just gorgeous. I mean, when I've played that, it takes me like 5 minutes in between each measure to reset my hand for the next one. And your flow from one to the next was just seamless and beautiful.
Thank you. I'm still working on that. I'm it sounded very crunchy to me. Maybe it didn't come across so much
Not at all. It
through the
was
bow. Okay,
beautiful.
thank you.
Linda.
Janet, that was really beautiful. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
it with us. I have one question and one observation. Um, I guess let's just go with the question because it's a little bit more interesting. Um, like when you're playing that, to me, that's a very emotional piece. It has a lot of gravitas in it, but that's just how I interpret it. I'm curious how you see it, how you feel when you feel into that piece. What's happening with you emotionally?
It came to me when I was doing that thing that I described earlier. It's it sounds like my father's voice. Um,
Ah,
yeah,
ah,
long gone. Um,
ah,
and and it became something like moments of hearing his voice. It's kind of like a man's register, right? The first few notes. Um, and then, like vignettes from his life were sort of
mm,
like,
mm.
you know, World War II,
Yeah, I
loss,
do know.
various,
Yeah.
losses in his life that kind of like, tragic, tragic things. I didn't, it didn't remind me of any of the happy days. There weren't any
Okay.
happy days in his life, at least not in this picture. But yeah,
But I don't think there are many happy days
there's not,
in this
there
in
isn't, I don't
anyway. I
think.
mean,
Yeah, I
has
didn't
a
really, I didn't really find
really.
anything.
I think so.
Yeah,
That's very interesting. You hear your father in that piece.
yeah. It
Yeah.
it sort of came
Um.
it came to me with the first, just his voice in the first three notes. It's sort of kind of old man struggling and sort of like that kind of haziness in a voice. And then I kind of just went with it. Then I just let that kind of roll as, and it only happens in in moments, and it happens when I'm trying to do it from memory. Um, I can't always conjure it up, but it's almost like a dream. When you lose someone, kind of hope that they might come visit you in a dream,
Yeah.
but you
Right.
can't force it, you know.
Yeah, I know. Janet, I'd asked you when we last met, and you sent this recording. I was like, was there anything in particular that you feel like you would like to be stronger, or like something that in particular that you're concerned about? And you said that there were places lower down on the D string that you felt sometimes were not speaking like you wanted them to speak, and then you commented on the chords at the end. So maybe with those two ideas in mind, I thought it might be worth referencing, actually taking the opportunity to reference the opening measures, the practice companion for this month, the pages about tone production,
Oh, good.
which are in our practice companion for May, on, let me check, I think it's page 17, 18, 19. And it's basically, these pages are just built around the premise of lower strings need less bow and more weight, and higher strings need more bow and less weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt sometimes that your playing is so full of ideas and poetic and not always grounded, and that you could sometimes it is, like in the last page, for me at least, and it's interpretive as well, but like the last page, I felt like when you went down to those low C string, G string notes, that there was like a depth to them. There was a richness. You were kind of really leaning into, and maybe that's interpretive that you choose to save that for there. But there were places earlier where I felt like sometimes your use of bow variables, meaning primarily for this, like how much bow you're using and how much weight, were maybe not as supporting you as much as they could do, and that you could use a heavier, less bow on some of those lower notes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it even related a little bit to your thing about the D string, because the D string is such a difficult string to play, and it's probably like the hardest string to play. It just always sounds finicky, and I think I have learned and feel that it's quite often we need a slightly more robust approach to the D string, like a little bit more weight than we may think, and that change in variables from one string to the next needs to be anticipated. So if you were, for example, in the opening bars where you have second bar, so you have C sharp, E, and then you go to the D string with a first finger, that you need to be anticipating that you're going to need to use enough weight in the bow, and for that to happen, various things can change. It could be a tiny thing in the torso where you just slightly move to the left to kind of realign this feeling of weight into the string. So anticipating the next string, places like, where you have the F major. So I don't know if you want to make that like a kind of like mezzo forte bridge, or maybe softer, which is fine. Either way could work. But then that F sharp, D, and then that kind of thing I think it needs really slow work, where you play into that G string, drop the weight onto the C string, and just doing it very slowly, kind of micro anticipating these the sound that you want from the next string, and the awareness of the physics of it, like that you want more weight on the lower strings. Again, you may actually be like, well, actually I like that softer, which is totally fine, but I wasn't sure if it was always, I felt like sometimes it may not have been a deliberate choice.
Yeah, it's definitely, I didn't think of this at all. So,
Okay.
the bow variables,
Uh-huh.
I was doing bow direction, but up bow, down bow, but I didn't think about that at all. So that's definitely, even even if that, I think, I don't know if it came across, but I meant for the F major measure 13 to be softer, but even if it's softer, I still need to be aware that I'm on the C string, which I don't think I was. I hadn't,
Yeah, it's
didn't even think of that. So
well
that's
because
great.
I think I mean the upside of the way that you're doing it is that you've got this imagination going, and that comes across like that. I think that you take us on that journey because that's there. Like ultimately, that's what the audience wants. They want you to take you on, to be taken on that journey, and you do that. I think maybe this extra thing can give you the grounding to just support your story.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, of course. The bar 40, that's a place that, right, more weight, and then 2 bars later, that's one really, I think, yeah, that's one place that stood out as being, to me at least, to being like benefiting from that depth kind of. It's like you've got to kind of tell the story from the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
And then the chords are gorgeous, and I think Kimberly's right, like they sound very emotive actually, and I think part of that is because they're slightly crunching. Actually, like it kind of like sounds, it's like when something's so heartfelt that it sort of cracks,
Right.
and there's something in
Okay.
that.
I'll keep the crunch.
Well, maybe a little bit. I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
That said, we don't want to practice crunches specifically.
Right.
So what I think you could just do is work on lightening at the frog, because it was always at the frog that the crunch happened. And I would practice open strings. So like I would do the chords open strings. So you sustain here. That the elbow comes down a little bit,
Yeah.
so that because what we tend to do is go, okay, this is really beautiful chords. I'm gonna sustain. Oh gosh, what happened? And we all do it. So it's like you have to kind of like be unintuitive and just like deliberately be very, very, very mindful about being light as we come to the frog, and finding that place of, okay, this is calm, this is like low elbow, this is calm. And it could be that it would help to practice that with stops, just so that you get used to kind of, this is home, this is what home is, rather than kind of trying to make it always sustained. You
Okay.
could do, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good tip.
yeah, so to get more control, more power at the point, I move a little bit this way at the point. Then you have to kind of lighten. Again, move. And probably for this one, you can actually lift the bow a little bit and just literally take a moment to go. Very last one. Maybe.
That would be good. That's
Maybe,
awesome.
yeah, take a break. Yeah.
But thank you that I see you leaning back a little for the power at the tip.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like we did that in one of the last labs. When we were
Yeah.
doing something like that, right? That it almost gives you
Yeah,
more a length. It's as if you suddenly have a longer arm or a longer bow.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
feel
and you can.
extra length.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, if you kind of push through both feet, but especially the right foot to kind of
okay.
like
Hmm.
actively the whole
Hmm.
foot, the whole like the heel and the front of the foot, just pushing through.
Yeah.
That can again ground you more.
Hmm.
Um, do you want to try just doing one of these kind of open strings, pushing through your right foot, and then seeing if you can come back to a completely relaxed home position?
We're doing 4 note, oh no, 3 note chords.
Yeah, it's
Natural,
already
natural.
sounds
Yeah,
great. And you could probably even lighten even more at the
at the frog.
frog. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's on the up bow.
as you approach the frog.
There's still, well, without notes, right? Without left hand, there's plenty of ring going on.
Yes.
I don't know if it would be sort of covering, like, I guess what I'm concerned about is if I'm trying to connect and if I'm lightening the bow.
Do you want to try it?
Yeah. So it's from it's this one. It's not crunching.
It sounded great. It sounded great. I think
It's
if you
enough.
practice that in, you'll get it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's.
Hmm.
I think it's like optical or oral illusion where we think that we need to give more at the frog rather than just kind of thinking light and easy and letting the sound just kind of be light.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I think I probably it was trying to get more out of it than is natural for the cello. So, like
that is necessary. Yeah,
trying to hold it back,
yeah.
but
Well, yeah, and I think also that comes from the emotional intent, right? Because you're like, these chords are like there's this sort of sustain through them, and the way one goes to the next is so expressive. So you're kind of trying to make those connections really, really there, and then we end up undermining what we're actually wanting to sound, how we want it to sound. So I think the intention is perfect. It's gorgeous. I love it. I love that, and it came across even with the crunches. So, but if you add this to it, then we'll have the intention and no crunches. So,
thank you.
yeah. Does anybody have any other thoughts or comments for Janet or in general? Anything anybody wants to share? Okay, well, thank you everybody, and again to Owen and to Janet for playing today. And our next, well done both of you, excellent
Thank
job.
you. Thank you.
And then our next meeting will be on the 16th, Saturday the 16th, so not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. I think Judy's going to play for that, which is great. I think that hopefully Timothy, I can twist his arm. He's like on the fence, but okay, I'm saying yes, excellent. We have space for more if anybody would like to play. So yeah, Carla, Chad. Anybody? So yes, I'll put it out there. We have plenty of material if not, but if you do want to, then please send it my way. I'm always so happy to hear what you're doing and to try to be of help, and it's just nice to bring it to this community group. So have a lovely rest of the week and see you Saturday after next. Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sophie. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye.